Hey, what is up everybody? So today I want to share with you guys how to make your own homemade avocado shea butter liquid soap. So yeah, let's just get into it. So the first thing you want to do is begin by weighing out your oils. And you want to use a 3-quart crock pot for this recipe. And I started out with 125 grams of olive oil, 200 grams of avocado oil, 25 grams of castor oil, 100 grams of 76-degree coconut oil, then 50 grams of shea butter. So then just go ahead and take your 3-quart crock pot and you want to turn it on high. Then take the inside of your crock pot that you weighed your oils in and set it inside your crock pots. So go ahead and set the crock pot to the side. And now we're going to create our lye solution. So for liquid soaps, you always want to use potassium hydroxide. But you first want to start out with a thick glass container and you want to weigh out your water. I used 130 grams of distilled water, then 60 grams of vegetable glycerin. But if you want, you can use the whole 190 grams as distilled water if you don't have vegetable glycerin. So now you want to grab some gloves, goggles, a mask, and some long sleeves, just some good protective gear, and weigh out the potassium hydroxide. You want 98.10 grams of the potassium hydroxide, and be careful because this stuff has some fumes and you don't want to breathe that stuff in. So for this next part, you want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated room or outside. So now you want to go ahead and pour the lye into the water. Never do it the other way around. Always pour the lye into the water. Now at this phase, it'll start making some hissing noises and it'll get really hot. It's okay, it's completely normal. Just mix it up a little bit to help the lye dissolve. And just let the lye sit into the water until it runs completely clear. This can take maybe about 10 minutes. So if you guys can tell, the water is completely clear now. So I'm just setting that to the side and pulling back my crock pot. Now you want to go ahead and let all your oils completely melt. So once all of your oils are completely melted, then this is when you can go ahead and pour in your lye solution. So grab your immersion blender, and I like to set my immersion blender in my oils, and then just pour the lye solution over top of the immersion blender. And go ahead and immediately mix up your soap mixture. And you want to mix this soap with the immersion blender until it becomes thickened. But if you don't have that kind of patience, then you can just come back and mix it every 5 minutes for the next 30 minutes until it becomes too thick to mix with the immersion blender. I just sat here and mixed mine until it became like an applesauce type of texture. If you guys can tell here, it kind of looks like applesauce. And I just kept mixing until it was like way too thick to mix with the immersion blender. So I went ahead and grabbed this really thick spoon. So this is basically what it looked like after about 30 minutes. As you can tell, it's super thick. It's way too thick for the immersion blender. So you got to use a nice thick spoon for that. So I just gave it one last good mix, and I went around the edges and I scraped down all the edges to get any of the soap that might be on the sides of the crock pot, because you don't want them to burn. So scrape the entire sides and then lid your crock pot, and you want to keep it on high during this phase. And you're going to want to let it cook for 3 hours. Then come back basically every 10 minutes and mix it up again. You can push it to 20 minutes, but I wouldn't really recommend that because it might burn. So keep it between like 10 to 15 minutes. Come back each time, give it a good mix, scrape the sides, and just keep doing this for about 3 hours. And as you can tell, the soap mixture will get kind of darker and more translucent, and you might actually see some like little suds on the sides. So this is completely normal. So just keep doing this for 3 hours, coming back and mixing it up. And as you can tell here, the middle is kind of getting translucent, but the edges are still kind of like lathery and white looking. That's completely normal, that'll happen. So just keep working through it until it's basically all kind of like gelled and translucent. If it doesn't become like completely gelled, that's okay. Just keep cooking for maybe about 4 hours. But this is basically what it'll look like after about 3 to 4 hours. It'll be all like dark and gelled. If it doesn't completely gel after 4 hours, then go ahead and do a pH test anyways. So to do a pH test, you want to boil about 4 ounces of water. Then you want to take about a golf ball sized blob, that always works for me, and dissolve it into your soap paste. It can take up to about like an hour or two to have your soap paste dissolve. This soap paste actually took quite a bit to dissolve. It took like almost a full like hour and a half to dissolve. So that's completely fine, just wait for it to dissolve. So once it is dissolved, it's time for the pH test. So you can either do this using pH strips. The pH strip said it was about a pH of 8. Or you can use a pH meter. This is far more accurate, and this is definitely what I recommend. So my pH meter came out to be a pH level of 9.05. Anywhere between 7 to 10 is completely safe. So now here's the time when you want to decide if you want to go ahead and dissolve all your soap paste now or dissolve it as you want to use it. So if you do want to go ahead and dissolve all your soap paste right now, what you can do is add 6 cups of distilled water to your crock pot, and be sure to turn your crock pot down to warm. That is really important. And you're going to want to let it sit for about the next 8 hours. Try to break up your soap paste into the water as much as you can. You won't be able to do it too well, but just try to break it up a little bit. And after 8 hours, if you end up having this weird kind of like film over top of the soap, just go ahead and add another cup of water until that weird kind of film is completely gone. So what I chose to do is actually store away my soap paste. And this is a better way to do it if you want to keep a longer shelf life. So I went ahead and took a sterilized mason jar and filled my mason jar up with my soap paste. And then whenever I need to use my soap paste, I can just go ahead and dissolve it down whenever I need it. So this is a way to keep the shelf life a lot longer. It'll last about 3 years in the paste form, but once you dissolve it down, it'll last maybe about a year. And some people do recommend preserving it with some preservatives. It is said that soap has a pH so high that it is self-preserving, but people argue that liquid soap does not because you do introduce water to it. So that's your own personal preference if you want to use a preservative or not. So as you can see, I just stored my Castile soap in this pump bottle, so whenever I want to go use it, I can just pump it right into my hands. Also, I do want to mention, once everything is completely dissolved, you'll end up with about 2 quarts of soap. So now it is time for a lather test. I went ahead and grabbed this loofah, added a few pumps of the soap, and look at all the suds. There's so many suds, and this stuff is really moisturizing as well. So I think you guys will love this homemade soap if you're into making homemade soap. But anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. I have all kinds of other homemade soap videos here on my channel. I'll link them all down below for you. Also, if you guys didn't know, I do sell homemade skincare products over on my Etsy shop. I will link my shop down below and up in the corner for you guys, so it's easy for you guys to find. Hope you all have a great week, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!
I'm stuck in the motions. I've been consumed by the wrath of time, like I'm I'm shattered in this life. It's still the path that I've chosen, because I've had a vision. Now I'm on a mission to find myself.